Good morning, class Humanities 1211. This is our final project, which is composed by Roxana Dante and myself, Pamela Ramirez, and we choose to talk about Dante Alighieri, which is a really good choice. During the weeks, we thought he was so impressive, and that's why I'm going to be talking about him a little bit more. In my next Dante Alighieri was born in Florence, Italy in the year 1265. His mother was Donna Gabriella degli Avati, who died when he was very young, which we don't know a lot about her. His father was Alighiero di Valentiniani Alighieri. Dante was an Italian poet and more philosopher. He also mainly studied rhetoric, grammar, philosophy, literature, and theology. I'm gonna be also talking about a little bit more about Dante, his life, which he got married to Gemma di Manetto Donati, and that was around 1285. She gave him three children. Dante was a disciple of Brunetto Latini, who was strongly influenced in his culture grown. Then began studying philosophy and theology in deep, also attending some sort of cultural association in Florence, the Studia, which provide lesson mainly about Aristotle and St. Thomas. To begin a political career, Dante joined a medical corporation in 1295. In the following 5 years, his career grew quickly. But in Florence, the contrast between white and black golfing became harder and serious internal struggles began. And during this time, Dan was strongly accused even of fraud. He was sentenced to pay a fine, which he did not want to pay for, and he was sentenced to death. From this moment on, Dan roamed many Italian courts, never again to return to Florence. He stayed under the protection of Bartolomeo della Scala in Verona in 1303. In 1306, he moved to Lunigiana, a Tuscan region, then to Poppi and to Lucca. In 1313, he went back to Verona, where he stayed till 1319. In the same year, he moved to Ravenna, to the court of Guido Novello da Polenta. Dante Alighieri, he died there in Polenta in 1321. He was buried in San Pier Maggiore church, where his tomb is still nowadays. The church is now called San Francesco. Now we're gonna go and find more and during his time what he did. And the historical period Dan lived in was the late Middle Age, especially in the 14th century. The center will see, just after Dante, the agony and the death of the traditional medieval culture. That is the one formed mainly by the influence of church, the Roman classical tradition, and the German population. Politically speaking, two were the authorities in the war, the emperor and the pope. The former represented the temporal power, the latter the religious power. Now I'm gonna go ahead and show some of his work, and I have a lesson here almost all his work, but in my next slide, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about some of his work that I was really into and really like what he did. Um, his work in Italian were Divina Commedia, Vita Nuova, The Bombibio, The Rim, Second Fiore, and Dero di Amore. And the works that he did in Latin language were the Vulgari Eloquenia, the Monarchia, the Epistolas, the Loques, and Quaestio de Aqua et de Terra, which I choose to talk about Vida Nueva. Vida Nueva was a story about his love, Beatriz. From the moment they met, he was overcome by love for her. Beatriz died in 1290s. Then Inconsolable was finally able to set down the story of his love in Villanueva. They both got married. Describe his spiritual regeneration through his pure love for Beatriz. Basically, this story was talking about the love that the person that he loved who got married to someone else, and he got married to someone else also. Now I'm going to be talking about his life related to the comedy. Not too much we know about his life, but we could devote his life to study and literature. He met Beatriz, love and muse of his life when he was 9 and she was 8. The Divine Comedy. I put a picture in here that is a great example of showing that then his comedy. And this was carried this out in his comedy later became known as the Divine Comedy. Not comedy in the usual sense, but in the sense that it began in despair and ends in bliss. A long narrative poem written in terza rima, an epic, but more of a spiritual epic written rather than spoken. The structure of the comedy. The 3 books are canticles. Each canticle is divided into 33 cantos. The verse schema is terza, rhythm, stanza, or 3 lines with interlocking rhymes. Multiple of the numbers 3 around within the work. Now I'm going to be explaining what was the interpretation of the Inferno. We have 3 categories. We have the literal, the allegorical, and the moral. The literal was a vision of a man is journeying through hell. The allegorical described a Christian soul traveling through a state of sin in search of redemption and blissfulness. And in the moral is basically describing what awaits sinful soul and encourage the living to seek salvation. This is a picture that I thought it was super interesting about Dante's Inferno. It's showing his creativity, and this is one of the reasons why we choose to talk about him, because he was way up there with his painting. I'm going to be now talking about one of the most important part of his period, and which caught my attention a lot, was the Ninth Circle of Hell. I put little pictures below the paragraph, which was part of the Circle of Hells, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this now. The Inferno, the first part of Dante is Divine Comedy. That was inspired the latest Dan Brown is bestseller of the same title describe the poet's vision of hell. The story begins with narrator who is poet himself. Begin lost in a dark wood where he is attacked by three beasts which he cannot escape. He is rescued by the Roman poet Virgin, who is sent by Beatrice. Then is ideal woman. Together they begin the journey into the underworld or the ninth circle of hell, which I'm gonna break down in our next slides. The first circle, limbo. Then his first circle of hell is recited by virtuous non-Christian and unbaptized pagan who are punished with eternity in an inferior form of heaven. Now we're gonna go to our next circle. It was a loss, and here you can see that Dante, his companion Virgin, five people who were overcome by loss. They're punished by being blunt, violent, back and forth by strong winds, preventing them to find peace and rest. And our next circle, that's the third one, is a gluttony. When researching the third circle of hell, Dan and Virgil find souls of gluttons who are overlooked by a worm master, Cerberus. Sinners in the circle of hell are punished by being forced to lie in a vile sludge that is produced by never-ending ice rain. And our fourth circle is called the grid. Dante and Belgius see the soul of people who were punished for cred. They are divided into two groups, those who rotted possession and those who were lavishly expended. They use great weight as a weapon, pushing it with their chests, which symbolize their selfish drive for fortune during lifetime. Now, the fifth circle is the anger, which is where the wrathful and sulur are punished for their sins. Transported on a boat by Pelagius, Dan and Virgil see the wrathful fighting each other on the surface of the river. And keep going to our sixth circle, which was heresy. Dante and Virgil see heretics who are condemned to eternity in flaming tombs. Here Dante talked with a couple of Florentines, Farinata, degli Uberti, and Cavalcante de Cavalcanti. But he also sees other notable historical figures, including the ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus, Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II, and Pope Anastasius II. Our seventh circle was violence, and is divided into three rings. The outer rings houses murders and others who were violent to others people and property. Here Dante sees Alexander the Great Disputer, Dionysius I of Syracuse, Guy the Mourner, and many others notable historical and mythological figures such as Centaurus sank into a river of boiling blood and fire. And the eighth circle is the fraud. is recited by the fatherland. Dan and Virgil reached on the back of the Geron, a fine monster with different naturals, just like the fatherland. The circle of hell is divided into 10 bogies or stony ditches, with bridge between them. In Bulgate 1, Dante sings Pandarus and Seducer. In Bulgate 2, he finds flagellaries. After crossing the bridge to Bulgari 3, he and Belgius see those who are guilty of simony. And our older Bulgari, there are 7 more, are just like. So let's go to our ninth circle. That was the treasury. And it's divided into 4 rounds. According to this Syrianus of the Seine, through all residents are frozen in an icy lake. Those who committed more severe sins are deeper within the ice. Each of the 4 rounds is named after an individual who personifies the sin. And our last, I'm gonna be talking about then is empath, and basically is known about the tale of Danny's life other than what he tell us of his work. Sorry. The portrait emerged of a bitter and passionate man who used prophetic poetry to warn Florentines of the evil which awaited them for their misdeed and the confusion and corruption of their government. I also put the word cited in here is where I find all my information. And I would love to keep talking about Dante, but it's a lot of information that we can learn from him. I will read over his work again, and I will let everyone know that he's a great poet and philosopher that you should be interested in to know a little bit more about him. If you wanted to search more, you're welcome to do so. It's a lot more information that you can find about this character, which is a lot to cover. And this is all for our presentation, and it was covered by Roxana Jonti and Pamela Ramirez. Have a great day. Bye bye.